Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with the Colt Delta Elite HBAR. We've done a video on this previously, but I posted a picture of it on X, Twitter, and somebody was talking about like, wow, I'd love to see a video on that and all this stuff. And I said, well, we did one many years ago. Would you like to see an updated video? And people said yes. So here we are, listening to the will of our viewers. So the Delta Elite HBAR, this is a rifle that was manufactured in the late 1980s. This is a rifle that I've been shooting since the late 1980s. We have a documented letter on this rifle from the collector's department over at Colt. So you can, if you have Colt rifles and handguns that you think is a collectible, if you want to get the background story on it, you can contact Colt, which is what's been done, and they'll give you a letter giving you all the information they have on the particular firearm you're inquiring about. So we'll show you that letter. We'll talk about some of the unique features about the Delta Elite HBAR, and we'll do a little bit of shooting with it and see what type of accuracy it can produce and just have some fun with it out on a nice, cold, rainy winter afternoon in January of 2024. Let's get started with today's video, shooting the Delta Elite HBAR. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So the rifle that you see here was manufactured in 1989. And here's the letter from Colt. So it's dated 2018, and it talks about the serial number, breaks down the rifle, type of finish and the stuff that it would have had with it, and then where it was shipped to. So it was shipped to Sile Distribution Inc., and that was in Connecticut. And then it seems that there was a note attached to the shipment that it was for the Floyd County Sheriff's Department, Indiana, dated October 17th, 1989. And so that's really kind of cool. So now I have the background story on this rifle. It was originally intended for, I guess, the department. Based on that letter, looks like they ordered maybe 11 rifles, and they probably would have used them as some sort of a police sniper rifle. And it's really interesting because this gun just screams 80s, right? So when the Delta Elite HBAR came out, we still hadn't progressed to the point of the Picatinny rail on top. We obviously still have this fixed front sight post out here, which can get in the way of optics, especially low power optics. You'll definitely see it in your field of view. With higher power optics, it'll blur out to the point where you can't really see it if it were setting down low enough to catch it. But you'll notice that we have just used the original hole through the carrying handle here, and all this stuff is factory, okay? And so then we have an arms mount, and this is what's really cool about this gun. Have an old arms mount here that attaches using the hole, right? Goes back to the early M16s. And then it's a Weaver rail on top. And if you take a look at the scope, there's something suspiciously absent. It is scope rings, right? There are no scope rings. That's because on the bottom of the scope, there's an attached Weaver rail on the bottom of the scope. The two Weaver rails are setting together, and then they have clamps on both sides that are adjustable that clamp the scope to the rail. No rings. And so that's really kind of crazy because you just don't see stuff like that anymore. Now, what's interesting is these old arms rail mounts like this can be hard and expensive, hard to find and expensive when you do find them. We're just checking on the PSA website, the H&R stuff, because obviously I'm interested in those retro rifles, and H&R/PSA has now made a replica of this old arms mount that's on their website. And so I may have to pick one of those up just to see and put it on a rifle just to play with it. So anyway, very cool. Now, the scope that you see on here, again, all the stuff is factory, is a Tasco 3-9. So on the low end, you have 3 power magnification. On the high end, we have 9 power magnification. We have adjustable elevation and windage, and these are little rubber caps. These aren't metal, and they're not hard plastic. They're rubbery. You can push on them. You can see them flex. And then there's no side focus on the scope, not really necessary with the magnification range you're talking about. And then you'll notice this rubber armored cover. And this is kind of symbolic of the rifle and the scope that was put on it. Is the way it mounts in this rubber armoring to protect the scope from being beaten around in the back of a squad car, or if the military were to use it, being beaten around, in some sort of armored vehicle or whatever, transportation vehicle. So it's really kind of interesting. So that really kind of defines the HBAR. Now, keep in mind, rifles like this would be cloned because Colt would sell this cheek riser. You would be able to buy a scope like this, and people that didn't want to buy the Delta Elite, which would have this unique marking on it, the triangle, you'd see it on this rifle, you'd see it on the Delta Elite 1911 10mm that Colt produced back in the day, and they're reproducing now. So people will try to clone this gun, and that's why you want to reach out to Colt if you have one of these, just to make sure that your rifle was originally manufactured as a Delta Elite and wasn't a clone. And that'll become more common as time goes on, people cloning them and trying to pass them off as originals. So we have this adjustable cheek piece. This thing back here attaches to a standard A2 buttstock, and then it just kind of clamps it, right? So it's a friction fit. Screws holding it in place, has the Colt logo on it. Everything else on this rifle is pretty much standard fare A2 HBAR. What does HBAR mean? It means heavy barrel. HBAR is an abbreviation of heavy barrel. So if you take a look at a standard A2 profile barrel, which I have here, this is another Colt, a later production gun. This one would have been manufactured probably in the 90s. You'll notice that it has the step down right here to basically an A1 profile barrel, and then right here at the rear of the front sight, it thickens into an A2 profile barrel. When you contrast that against the HBAR, or the heavy barrel, now Colt would call this the target model with its standard government profile barrel back in the day, and then they would call the actual heavy barreled guns HBARs, which this is also a target rifle. You'll notice that Colt has done a few things to this particular gun. It has a receiver block in it, so you can not put a third pinhole in it. It has the bayonet lug shaved off of it, and this would be representative of rifles that Colt would produce before the '94 assault weapons ban, that they were trying to, in their opinion, trying to stop the government from passing assault weapons ban by trying to convince other manufacturers to neuter their own guns so that the government wouldn't pass a ban. And that really angered people with Colt, and rightfully so. And so this gun, you're going to find a 1989 gun, so 1989, keep in mind, George Bush, 41, did the import ban, right? So we saw a lot of bans happening in 89. This gun is neutered. So in 89, Colt was shaving the bayonet lugs off. But the HBAR barrel, it's kind of hard to get at with that scope sitting there. You can see the profile on it now. So it's a much thicker profile. Look how thick that thing is. It adds about a pound or so to the rifle, makes it kind of muzzle heavy, but it does improve the shootability of the gun, a little more stable, especially shooting offhand. Is it more accurate than the standard government profile barrel? I haven't really seen a huge difference in accuracy, even a noticeable difference in accuracy. So if you're tight slinging it, stuff like that, this heavy barrel is going to make a difference. It's going to improve the accuracy. You're going to have less deflection in the barrel if you tight sling it, things like that. So I can understand why people would want the heavy barrel, especially on a rifle like this. Now, what's also interesting, Jason brought this up, and he's absolutely right. When you go to buy these old Colts, many times when you're looking at the A2 style, like these, it's really hard to find the government profile barrel guns. These are less common, at least in our experience, than the HBARs. So when you buy a Colt A2 from back in the day, it seems like when you're out there shopping for them, the most commonly found ones would be the HBARs. There we go. So in just a regular, ranch rifle, whatever, I wouldn't want the heavier barrel. I'd prefer the standard A2 barrel. In all honesty, I prefer the A1. But on a target rifle like this, it definitely makes sense. So then outside of that, we just have a regular muzzle device out here, 1-in-7 twist, just a standard Colt barrel. Have the trapdoor on the buttstock, fire controls, all that stuff. But what's interesting is, I pointed out on this rifle, we have this receiver block, right? And Colt went above and beyond trying to keep people from, being able to modify their firearms. So there's no way you can get this block out of here, not easily anyway, because if you try to remove this, you're going to have this huge pin on the side that's also going to come out, and it's going to leave a massive hole there, and that's where the third pin would go for a machine gun conversion. So Colt was trying to say, hey, look, we're making it impossible for people to convert these. Please don't pass this ban. And again, all they do is make everybody mad. So if you take a look at this rifle, this 89 rifle, this is before Colt started doing that. But what Colt used to do, like an M16, this pocket will be uniform in its shape for the most part. It'll be like a horseshoe. Notice how it steps out right here? That is also designed to keep people from illegally modifying their firearms, or even legally modifying them back in 89 with, you know, registered sears and things like that. If you were going to use a Colt, it'd be very difficult because you have to machine all this out, drill the hole, and do it in there, even on a legal conversion. So it's just one of those things that the Colt did. It was really weird. You'll also notice that on these earlier guns, they cut the carriers back, the full auto carriers. This piece right here would come all the way up and be about in the same spot as this top piece here. But they've cut that back so it can't trip the auto sear or lightning link or anything like that that somebody might try to use in the rifle. So Colt super civilianed the guns and wanted to make sure that nobody could do that. Also, you'll notice that these old Colt hammers, they're notched right here. And this is more or less a safety feature. So if somebody were to try, or if the sear broke in this, or if somebody was trying to do an illegal conversion or something like that by removing the disconnector, this won't work. The hammer will not follow the bolt and allow the gun to fire, because if the hammer's just following the bolt, this notch will lock up on the rear of the bolt on the firing pin area, and it'll seize the gun and it'll stop working, so you can't get slam fire hammer follow. So these guns are extremely safe. So if the anti-gunners out there talking about, oh man, you just theoretically convertible, show them a Colt. No, they're not. So anyway, but like I said, pretty much standard fare. I love the old gray finish these guns have. It has a standard A2 buffer assembly in it, stuff like that. So what makes this a Delta Elite? The triangle on the pistol grip, the cheek riser, the Tasco 3x9, the arms scope mount, and then the HBAR barrel, but the HBAR barrel was also sold outside of the Delta Elite. So really it's just the scope and this cheek piece that turns it into the Colt sniper rifle. Now this would also come in an aluminum case. Let me grab that for you here really quick. And this is what the aluminum case would look like that it ships in. Hokey by today's standards. Very kind of flimsy. Here's the original owner's manual, all the stuff that came with the rifle, the original magazines that came with the rifle. And this just reminds me of gun cases back in the 80s. this aluminum that's easily dented, very, very thin. But yeah, so it was a complete package that would ship in that box. And yeah, so you still have your iron sights on here. And what's interesting is that even though the arms mount has pass-through, so you can see with your iron sights through the scope base itself, because of this cheek riser, you can't get down low enough to use iron sights as a backup. All you have is the scope. Now you can take the scope off pretty easily with the point of a bullet. There's a big hole in here. You can use this leverage to unscrew it and just screw this off and take it off if you needed to, if you were in the field or something like that and your scope went down, but by no means a quick detach. Standard trigger, all that stuff, but still a really, really cool piece of Colt history and AR-15 history. A couple of things that I didn't point out in the previous segment I want to touch on really quick. With the cheek riser here on the A2 stock, you'll notice it has this kind of hook to it. The reason that hook is there is because that allows the T-handle clearance when you charge the rifle to be able to pull it all the way to the rear. Also, you'll notice on this earlier rifle, this rifle is manufactured later, there's no fencing on the rifle, and it has a super civilian two-part screw in the front, so a pinned lower and pinned upper will not work. You can't take an M16 upper and just pin it onto this, and you can't take an M16 lower and pin it to this upper. They're not compatible because this larger front screw that is a two-piece with a flathead is required to take it apart. The gun was really intended to only be cleaned by simply just hinging it open, all right? Not meant to be taken apart in two pieces like we're used to today with civilian AR-15s. Now you go forward a few years to this A2, and now it has the fencing present, and it looks like it has a push pin. It sort of is a push pin, but Colt, in their continued effort to super civilian guns with plugs like this and this seemingly present push pin, when you flip it over, what do you got? You got a two-piece screw holding it together, but it is a smaller pin format, and so you just gotta love Colt, right? The goofy things they do. All right, let's put this rifle aside for now and do a little shooting with this bad boy. So we have some Federal, let's do some 55 grain stuff. And this is some Federal American Eagle 55 grain. I want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. Been shooting that stuff since I was a kid. Love it. Great people, great company, great product. All right. 20 round mag. You'll also notice this heavy, grand style sling on the gun. Kind of cool. So when you get on the rifle, the cheek riser is in a good spot, especially for my large frame. You can get to the magnification here really easy. You'll also notice that right here on the top of the scope is a screw hole. You can back this out, and I would imagine you can put a little nub in there, so you can get leverage to rotate the ring a little more easier. That's what I think that's for anyway. We've had this rifle zeroed for many years. Let's go out to 150. Go out to 250. Go all the way out to 300. And we'll come back to 100. And, what do we got? We got a little dot right there. Man, those 20-inch guns, has a 20-inch barrel on this thing. It's 20-inch rifles with that rifle length gas system. They are so smooth. Such smooth shooting rifles. All right, we should probably run down, put up some targets. Let's try some match ammo in this and do a little bit of shooting. We'll crank it up all the way to 9 power. I had it down to 6 power for the shooting I just did. And let's see what type of groups. I don't think I've ever sat down with this rifle and put different types of match ammo in it to see what it could do. So let's do that. So here's some of the ammunition we're going to shoot this afternoon. First of all, we have Federal 69 grain gold medal match. Then we have some AAC. This is from PSA. And this is some 75 grain match. Also from AAC, we have some of their 77 grain OTM match, PMC X-Tac, and then some Fiocchi 77 grain match. The X-Tac is 55 grain, so it'll be our one match lightweight bullet, if you will. All right, so let's start shooting with the old Federal, and we'll just move on down, and I'll show you guys the end results. Always helps to load the rifle. So we just finished up firing our 5 different types of ammunition through the Delta Elite HBAR. This is all the ammunition we said we were going to shoot, and here are the end results. Starting off here, we have the Federal 69 grain, 1.3 inches for 5 shots. 1.5 inches for the AAC 75 grain stuff. Over here, the AAC 77 grain, 1.9, had a little flyer up here. The X-Tac, kind of common. It's 55 grain stuff. This is a 2.4 inch group. Pretty big. This one belongs to this group. 1.5 inch group with the Fiocchi 77 grain. And you can see the 5 shots right there. So this kind of speaks to the accuracy of the rifle just in general. So the old Colt rifles like this, they do have chrome lined barrels. They're not really match grade barrels. They're just okay barrels. They're good enough for military service and things like that. They're machine gun type barrels in that they were intended to be used on M16s, A2s, and stuff like that. Now the HBAR obviously wasn't used in military service, on the M16 A2 rifle, but it also is 1-in-7 chrome lined, all the same manufacturing procedures. This is just kind of as accurate as they are. About 1.3 inches, might squeeze out the 1 inch group every once in a while with match ammo, is about all I've ever been able to do with an old Colt HBAR like this with an optic on it. Now we are limited to 9 power. The targets are really, really small down there, but I've shot these a lot and enough to know that that's kind of the accuracy you kind of expect of an old Colt like this. So is it great accuracy? No. For 1989, is it good accuracy? Yeah, for a gas gun, it's actually pretty good for 1989. And so it's just a really, really neat rifle overall. So you're not going to win any precision matches with a rifle like this, but you're going to have an awful lot of fun shooting it. Again, a classic piece of AR-15 history, a classic piece of Colt history. and certainly a lot of fun to own and shoot. If you guys have any questions about anything we've discussed in today's video, please comment down below. I try to stick around for the first couple of days, answer questions you might have, or respond to comments you guys may have. We also look for your comments that give us ideas for future videos. So again, please comment down below. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. Again, there's a link in the video description below. You got the join and support button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can mash either one of those buttons and help support us on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 16 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.